John here. In this video, I'm going to show you what I tend to do when I haven't been practicing and or playing as much as I usually do. And I think it's the perfect time now after the holidays because on my end here, we had family over from England. So obviously I can't be that antisocial and just practice and play as much as I usually do. So when I come back to the guitar again, I can feel a bit rusty, and I hate that feeling. It's not fun and inspiring at all. And the first thing that I focus on is to get my technique back together. And now a lot of people might think that, well, technique is, it's just speed and whatever, but it's not really that, because regardless if you want to play the most technical metal stuff, or if you just love playing B.B. King solos, you still need a certain level of technique for each of those styles. So even if, might be a bit of a lower technical level for B.B. King stuff, it certainly is a specific technique behind it. And if you're not really in tune with the instrument, it's very frustrating to try to learn and just play music that you love, because you will sound worse than you are, because you're basically out of shape, right? So for me, the most effective way has been to take a more of a systematic approach, and above all, really focus on accuracy and relaxation. And now, why accuracy and relaxation is so important? Well, that's how you build your technique on the instrument to begin with, at least in my experience. And when I come back to the instrument, I find that what usually goes first is my ability to relax when I play. I tend to dig in more than I need to, and that leads to even more tension, and you have this sort of bad spiral. And it actually, you tend to feel worse than your technique, the shape of your technique really is in, because you tend to, or when I say you tend to, I mean I tend to put in too much energy into my playing, and that's not a good thing. So for me, I just want to get my brain and hand connection working again. And the easiest way that I've found to do that is to do it in the most systematic fashion. So I'm going to cover what I do here, and you can try it yourself, or just take pieces of it and see if it works for you as well. And first of all, I would just start with 3 notes per string. You don't have to start with that, but I'm just going to start with that here right now, because I also feel that the way that I do it here will incorporate all my fingers, and it's a lot of alternate picking, and it's just a good way to start for me at least. So what I would do then, I would pick a tonality. We're just going to keep it simple here today, so we're just going to do C major and A/A minor. And what I tend to do is to do 1 string at a time, then 2 strings at a time, and then 6 strings at a time. You might wonder, well, why not 3, 4, and 5? Well, you can do that as well, but you cover most bases when you do the single string, 2 strings at a time, and all 6 strings, or 7, or whatever, however many strings you have on your guitar. So what I start doing then, and where the systematic aspect comes in here, is the fact that I look at my left hand, and since it's 3 notes per string here, so I'm going to show it here on the 5th fret. So basically, I see this as not 1, 3, 4 as the fingering, or 5, 7, 8. That's irrelevant. I see this as 1, 2, 3. So basically, the notes from left to right, or low to high. So that's my first combination. And we have 6 of these combinations in total if you don't repeat any finger or any note. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, and then we have basically covered the ones we can start with the index finger. And then we have 2, 1, 3, and then 2, 3, 1. And then we've covered all the second finger or second note combinations. And then we have the last ones. We got 3, 1, 2, and then finally 3, 2, 1. So that's our combinations. And then I would apply this to each string in turn, doing the single string version, and really focusing again on relaxation and complete accuracy. So I practice very slowly, but I use what I call transition time. And whatever practice method I mentioned in this video, I've covered that before in the channel, so I'm going to link to that in the description so you can check that out in your own time. So I don't have to go over everything here. But basically transition time is just playing very slowly, but I do quick transitions between the notes. So you can check that video out below if you don't know what I'm talking about. So if we apply that to the high E string here, I start on the first available fret, first available note without using an open string. So that would be the F note here. And I would do the first sequence 1, 2, 3. Strictly alternate picking. And really listening for any type of glitches or anything that I don't like. And metronome wise, I would usually use a metronome and do it really slowly, around between 50 and 80 BPMs, and just do eighth notes, so 2 notes per beat. So if you're interested in that, but you can do pretty much anything you want here, but I would really suggest that you keep it very slow. The subdivision can be quarter notes, triplets, doesn't really matter. I like eighth notes, but that's up to you. So I do that all the way up, so I cover all the positions on my fretboard, and I have 24 frets, so I end up here, and then most of the time I would just descend from the B string instead, so I don't go back with the same sequence here. Instead, I go back with the same sequence from the B string. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. G string. You get the idea. All the way up and then down D string, up A string, down the low E string. Then I'm done with that sequence. Now I would go to the next one. So if you remember, we had 1, 2, 3. Now we have 1, 3, 2. So that sounds like this. As you might notice here, I actually get a repeated note. So the last note in this position will be the first note in the next one. And that's really good, because then I can really listen for the consistency or the lack of consistency. You basically want it to sound like you just, which is really hard because you basically, you need to get the finger there, but that's the point of it. So if you find that you go really, stuff like that, then you know that you need to slow down and really focus on your technique. So these repeated notes is actually a really good thing in this case for your hearing if your technique is really where it should be. So, and if it isn't, I slow down. There's no ego involved here because it's all quality at this point. And also, it might sound good, but you might feel that you're tense. No good. Slow it down. So that's super important. Because you have to remember why we're doing this, right? We're doing this because our technique is kind of shit at the moment because we haven't been practicing for whatever reason. So don't do any type of ego playing here and be like, well, actually I want to be at this metronome tempo, whatever. That doesn't make any sense at all. You want to treat this as, just listen for the purity of the notes and get everything as perfect as possible. And that will serve you the best. And actually, that's the way that I practice technique anyway. So it's not a big difference for me. The only difference here is that I might be practicing even slower and being even more hard on myself when it comes to the technique being perfect when I practice this. So don't skip that part. But basically, I do the same thing. So I go up here and then I go down. And generally it would not be this tempo, it would probably be something like this. And do all 6 strings again. And then we go to the next combination, which would be, so we're down 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, and now it's going to be 2, 1, 3. Again, we get that repeated note. But that's even trickier here, I think, because now you have like the middle finger that you need to start with, and that, even if it's not trickier, it will still feel different than the previous one. So you do the same thing, but then you go down. And don't do that. If I would do that, I would just slow way, 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 way down. But in general, it wouldn't even happen because I would probably be sitting at a that kind of tempo or even slower. So again, really listen to what you're doing, because that's where all the technique stuff begins and ends, in my opinion. Because if you can't hear that you're doing these small mistakes, those mistakes will compound, and then you will sit there and scratch your head, and you don't understand why your technique sounds like crap. So really focus on the sound you're getting out of the instrument. Super important. And now I have a bit of a delay here going on, but in most cases here I would do this even without a plugged in guitar. So just go, so I can really focus on how the string sounds, so everything is as even as possible. Or I would use a sound where I have no effects on at all except the distortion that I like. So I only have this delay on here because that's what I like to record videos with, and it doesn't sound so dry for you to listen to. Yeah, so then we'll do the same thing with all the this combination, all strings. Then I will go back and do the next combination. So we've now done 1 2 3, 1 3 2, 2 1 3, and now we have 2 3 1. So on, you go same thing, up the E string, down the B string, up the G string, and so on. Now we're done with that one. The next combination, and I know this might be a bit boring, but I think if you're actually working on something, if you're working on a tonality that you're not as good at, this can be even more beneficial. So if you feel that C major just works great for you, maybe try G major, where basically all the Fs will be F sharps instead, or whatever it might be for you that keeps you a bit more on the toes. But don't do too difficult stuff when it comes to the tonalities here, because the point is to get the technique together, right? So you want to be able to focus on your technique. All right, so the next one would be 3 1 2. So on, and our final combination is 3 2 1. And you will definitely feel that certain combinations will feel way easier depending on if you're ascending or descending. So, but that's just natural. But again, just keep the tempo as slow as you need to get through it perfectly. And if you find that certain combinations feel really awkward, just lower the tempo for that one. You don't have to keep everything at the same tempo, right? So now we're done with the single string. And I think the single string is really important though, because you can focus on these position shifts, and you can really hone in on the synchronization and all that stuff without having to think about crossing strings or anything like that. Now the second way that I apply these same sequences would be on 2 strings at a time. And that I tend to start on the low E string in this case, and I'm gonna be covering E and A, B, A and D, D and G, G and B, and B and E. But one at a time, right? But I tend to do it the same way. I go up first, so I choose the first combination, 1 2 3, and then 1 2 3 on the next string, and I keep this alternate, so down, up, down, up, down, up, and just move up like this. So this is basically just an ascending 6. But again, I focus on each note being absolutely perfect. Or as perfect as I can get it. Then when I get up to the top here, I do the same thing. I go to the A string and descend. D and G, and so on. And a quick note here, even if I could do it at that tempo and keep it perfect, I would still do it slower so I can focus on the transition time. So you can see my pick, for example, it doesn't go, it's really almost robotic in a way, because I try to pass through the string as quick as possible, and the same thing with my left hand. Just hold the note for as long as possible and then move very quickly to the next one. So I get a really legato feel. And legato doesn't mean, you know, necessarily hammer-ons and pull-offs. That's just a technique we use to execute, you know, real legato on guitar. But legato means that the notes are connected. So you can still play more or less legato with picking as well. It's just that the most common technique on the guitar would be to use hammer-ons and pull-offs. So I just want to clarify that. All right, so you do the same thing there. 1, 2, 3. So you go up the E and A, down A and D, up D and G, and so on until I'm done with that combination. Then I go back to the next combination. So I start here again and do 1, 3, 2 on each string. All the way up, and then you go down the same way that I talked about before. Then the next combination would be 2, 1, 3. And now this is gonna feel kind of weird, I would guess, because it's not necessarily something that you commonly play. So again, what do we do when we find anything that feels kind of weird? We slow it down. So just keep that in mind. No one is watching. I mean, you're watching me play now, but when you're at home and practicing, slow it down as much as you need to. So just leave the ego out of it. It doesn't matter. You will just sound 100 times better over time if you can focus on accuracy and not speed as you practice your technique like this. So that's super important. All right, so that was 2, 1, 3. Now we'll have 2, 3, 1. So you keep going with 2, 3, 1 all the way up. And then you change to the A and D string. And so on, and you do the rest of them. After that, we go to 3, 1, 2. So on, all the way up, and then you go back. Again, focusing on that relaxation and focusing on a good tone and no, ringing strings or whatever. So 100% accurate as much as possible. It's fine if you make a mistake here and there, but if you do that too often, just lower the tempo. That's it. And you also find that it's less frustrating to practice at a slightly lower tempo than having to stop and restart all the time because you keep screwing up. So that's something that's very important, and took me a while to figure that out as well, that okay, if I just do this a bit slower, I will actually get more into flow, and this whole thing will just be easier and less annoying to practice. So with that said, the last combination here will be 3, 2, 1. And now we get that repeated note again, and depending on your intonation, it might be exactly the same or slightly off, but really try to listen for this. That's the sound you want. So you don't want to go, you want to get rid of any slides as much as possible. Now this might sound overly pedantic for a lot of you, but trust me, if you focus on this stuff and be really, really, really pedantic and hard on yourself as you do this, when you practice technique, you will find that when you try to learn a new solo, you're working on improvisation, or whatever it might be, that your technique will be so much better. Especially if you make this into a habit, that whenever you do a repeating type of exercise, which I would consider this as well, you really focus on the accuracy and the relaxation, and let the speed be whatever, it doesn't matter. Speed really is a byproduct of accuracy and relaxation. So if you had trouble with speed before and you've tried it the old way, where you just try to push and push and push and be on the edge of your abilities the whole time, try it the other way. If you've done it the other way, the one that I'm not recommending, and that has worked for you, keep doing that. That's fine. If you get that to work for you, great. But if you haven't had success with that, just try this for a couple of weeks, where you put up a rule for yourself where, okay, whenever I'm practicing technique, and this is important, this is when you practice technique, when you do any type of repetitive work, you really focus on the relaxation and the accuracy. When you just play for fun, or after you've done your actual technique practice, you make a mistake here and there, or you push it a bit, that's just good. But when you practice any type of exercise that's repetitive, it's super important that you keep feeding your brain the correct signals over and over again, because that's how we learn over time. So it's kind of like the part of our brain that enables us to play stuff like that, it doesn't have the quality control. So you have to be the quality control, right? This part of the brain that enables you to play this stuff, eventually, once you get it locked in, that part of your brain is just repeating what you fed it the most. So if you feed it a lot of crap, that's what's going to come out. And you can't really change that, because if I play something like this, I have no control over, like, okay, how's this note going to be synchronized or not? It either it's going to be synchronized or it's not. And whether or not it is, it's going to depend upon my practice habits. So that's why I'm so, kind of over-explaining all this stuff. But I see this in so many students of mine, where they come to me and like, oh, I practice technique 2 hours a day and I haven't seen any improvements for the last 3 months. Then I know that they're probably sitting there just trying to go for it and focusing more on the speed aspect than the accuracy and the relaxation. So again, I don't want to, feel that I'm lecturing you here, but if you had trouble with the technique stuff before and you've mostly been focused on getting the speed up, focus on accuracy and relaxation for at least a couple of weeks, and I'm sure you're gonna feel a big difference in your overall technique and the speed as well. So don't skimp over this and be like, yeah, whatever, I'm just gonna do, push it with a metronome. Really give this a try, and I think you'll be very happy that you did. All right, so the last section then would be to apply this to the full scales. So 6-string scales in my case here. If you have 7 strings, it would be 7 strings, and so on. But same combinations. So I start down here. I'm just gonna go 1, 2, 3 first. Alternate picking. So I do that all the way up. Every time I move up a scale position. So what you're gonna find is that every other position I'm gonna be ascending, and every other position I'm gonna be descending. So what you want to do, when you get to your top position, mine is here on the 19th fret. So this is important. So when I end up here, and it doesn't matter if you end up like I did here because you have 24 frets or not, whatever you do, you're gonna restart the position you just did and do the opposite. So in this case, I started on the low pitch in this position and went up. So an ascending version basically. Now I'm gonna restart in the same position. I'm not gonna shift position, I'm gonna restart in the same position and just go down. And then let's go back to the next one. And so on. So basically you're gonna have everything's gonna be opposite. And that's to be able to cover each of these scale shapes, ascending and descending. And you accomplish that by going down in the opposite way at the start here. So just get the start correct here, you're gonna be fine going back down. And once you've done that, that's 1, 2, 3. Then you're gonna go to 1, 3, 2. Same idea. Just keep alternating all the way up, and then I'm gonna end up as before here. Here. And then I have to restart and go down. and so on all the way down again. Next one is 2-1-3. Same thing all the way up, and then restart and go back down. And we have 2-3-1. And remember, like I said, some of these might feel worse than others. No worries, just lower the tempo for that one. So that's really important. So what you don't want to do is just try to keep it at the same tempo and then just, crap out all over the place with these, trickier combinations. So that was 2-3-1. Now we're gonna go to 3-1-2. And then finally you would do 3-2-1. All the way up and all the way back. So that's what I would do when I want to get back into shape as quickly as possible. And I also do this with the pentatonic stuff, but I would generally just use the same type of exercises that I have in my pentatonic picking power book, also linked down below. And if you don't have that one already, you should really get it. You have a complete practice schedule, and it will help your alternate picking, not only for your pentatonic stuff, but your overall alternate picking. So that's the approach I would use for 2 notes per string. And when it comes to legato and sweep picking, I'm gonna cover that in a later video. But if nothing else, start with this. This is usually what I start with as well, and then I add in more things after, because I found this is the fastest way for me to get back into shape. And again, it's all about focusing on the accuracy and the relaxation, because that's where the whole key to this lies. And another thing I want to mention is that you don't need to play all combinations and all strings and everything in one go. Instead, you might do just a single string first as a warm-up, and then you just practice something else, your regular stuff, learn some music, and just have fun. And then you can go back and do all 6 combinations again using the 2-string versions, and then you practice something else, maybe just improvise, whatever you like doing. And then finally you can do the 6-string versions or the full scale shape versions. So don't feel that you have to do all in one go. I find it's actually really good for my focus, and also my willingness to even sit down and do this if I break it up a bit, because it is boring. That's just what it is. But doing this boring stuff will get you to the fun stuff much quicker, and also you will feel that by going through this, your technique comes back much quicker than if you just sit down and try to go straight into just pure learning new stuff or improvising. That's I've tried that as well, and has not worked well for me. So I prefer this approach, by being a bit more systematic and very deliberate in what I'm doing. And then, again, I've said this a million times by now, but focusing on the accuracy and the relaxation has been the key when it comes to all this stuff. So I have this whole routine on my Patreon. I'm going to link to that as well. Another link that I have below is for a video course from Wampler Pedals. So they contacted me before Christmas and let me view their course. It's about how you can use all your different pedals together. And I've never been a big pedal guy. And the reason for that is because I bought a pedal and it did not sound as good as it would sound when Pete Thorne or whoever demoed it, use it. And basically they cover how to get the most out of your pedals in this course. And it's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and I'm an affiliate for it, so you'll also be helping the channel if you get it through that link. But like I said, I'm not really a big pedal guy, but I felt that I understood it way more when I viewed this course. I can highly recommend that. So if you're into that stuff, definitely check that out, because I think it's a great way to get more out of the pedals you already have. And it's not necessarily about Wampler pedals either. They even state that in the course, that this works for any pedals, obviously. And they use a bunch of different pedals in the demonstration. So it's just, for me at least, because I'm really crap at all the pedal stuff and how to connect everything and to get the most out of it. I actually learned a lot from this course. So if you want to check that out, you have a link to that below as well. Yeah, so good luck with this stuff and see you in the next video.